Collage is one of the most accessible art forms we have. Anybody can do it, any age. You don't really need anything special except for some sort of glue and some paper. Today I thought we could use this great medium to think about composition and design properties to push our artistic practice a little bit further using materials that you can find around the house. Now, when I first started doing collage, I didn't really think of it as collage. I just started incorporating a lot of ephemera into my encaustic work. And when I first started out, I had nothing. I literally used the inside of an envelope because I thought the texture was really fun. Now, 3 years later, I have buckets of collage material. So if you're starting out and you're like, I don't have any interesting paper, trust me, the interesting paper will find you. As a matter of fact, if you live in any kind of recycle, thrift store type neighborhood, there's tons of materials that you can find. I went to my local thrift store and found a whole bunch of old choral music, and the music, well, this is all stomped up, but just the notes make really fun designs. You can cut them out. I used a whole bunch to make a whole bunch of circles for a project I did on AI. You can see it on my website right here. Origami paper makes fantastic collage material. And then if you like to jelly print, you can make all sorts of fun designs and materials with very inexpensive paper. This is calligraphy paper that I bought off Amazon a long time ago. I'm still working on it, and it is really fun to work with, especially with encaustic medium, because then it goes not quite transparent, but it creates that level of translucency, which I love in my work. But today we're just going to be using a Uhu stick, I don't know how to say it, some paper scraps that I have, and we're going to create some design compositions and see what we can do to push our design. So let's get started. All right, so I have some parchment paper I stole out of the kitchen. I've got some baby wipes. I don't know if this is the most environmental thing to use. You could obviously use a washcloth with some damp water. I just happen to have these, so I'm going to use them today. I like to incorporate some handmade elements into my collage, so I've got a variety of drawing materials. I've got a couple different pencils. I've got a white charcoal pencil. I've got this really fun glass pen that I bought on vacation in Italy, and then a really cheap, rusty old pen that I got from the art store. I have my Neo colors. These are always really fun to use. You can kind of blend them in. I love that. I've got this really cool white ink from Japan. I honestly don't even remember where I bought this from, but it's nice because it's opaque. And then I just have a little bit of gold ink. This is the I think it's Winsor Newton, just gold ink. I'll double check that for you. And then I have just a piece of multimedia paper here. I think it's 8.5 by 11. And then I have this beautiful Khadi paper that I bought from Hiromi Papers in Los Angeles. I like this Khadi paper, one, because it's got a nice warm tone to it. And the paper's kind of soft and it really sucks in that glue and makes things stick, which I think is really fun. And I like not having a white surface. And then I just have a variety of random scraps of paper that I have. Here's just a vegetarian meal thing. I love old sewing supplies. This is just an old razor blade package. When I bought my paper from Hiromi ages ago, it came with a whole bunch of Japanese newspaper, and I cut that out. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I feel like it needs to be somewhere. I love using, what is this called? Sewing patterns, because they go nice and transparent. Then I've got some Tengucho paper that I dyed with some, I think this is saffron and copper ink blended together, and it made this really cool green color that I love. And then just like my very first collage, using the recycling is fantastic. I was once snowbound with my kids when we lived in Kansas City, and they were toddlers and I wasn't gonna go out in the snow. My husband was traveling, and we literally spent 4 days going through the recycling and just making art, and it was so much fun. Highly recommend, instead of recycling, make some art out of it first, get some fun out of it. And then I just have some random scraps from old jelly prints, things that have been trimmed off. Sometimes these random scraps can make really nice edges, really nice design elements. Now, one thing I do like to do when I am collaging is I like to draw a border. I'm going to start with a square composition. I feel like square compositions can sometimes be a little challenging to not get everything too boring looking in that square. But what I want to do is I want to just make myself a little bit of a border. Let's give myself a little more room here. And so this is about 8 inches. So we're just going to give myself a 1-inch border on all sides. Like, I don't care if it's exactly 7 inches. This is just for me. But I like to have that sort of clean border and give myself some parameters. I think sometimes with art, if you don't give yourself some structure, it's like the sky's the limit, and that can feel a little overwhelming, and it can be difficult to start. Now this has got a kind of a rough, kind of deckled edge, but it'll be fine. Like I said, I'm not too worried if it's not completely square. One fun thing you can do too is make the border even tighter. And then you can collage in the border and have things spill outside the border, which is always a fun look. All right, so we have a square inside of a square. Now, I don't know if you're like me, and sometimes you look at this blank sheet of paper and you're thinking, oh, this has to be fantastic. But I want you to push past that, because art isn't about the product. Art is all about your intention. It's the process. It's just the joy, almost the prayer of creating something out of nothing. And so sometimes I'll just start checking down some paper. I love old maps. I think what you need to think about when you're doing any kind of collage is you don't want things to be the same shape. You don't want things to have the same weight. You want a lot of variety. And you gotta be careful that you don't have too much color. I like this piece of tape. I don't know how it's going to work. Now, most people, if they have taken any kind of art class, understand composition. But if you're new to composition, think about it like this. There are a variety of types of ways you can put elements down on a page. I would say that the most obvious would be, let's put something in the middle. Well, that might not be the most exciting thing you can do with a piece of paper on a square piece of paper like this. And so there's the rule of thirds, where you would divide things into 3. And then where they would intersect might be a more dynamic place to put this piece of paper to create movement in your composition. You can do things like there's the golden triangle, where it's going to be more of a diagonal. So you can do something like this, where you're blocking the eye from leaving the corner of the page. And so I would challenge you, don't start with putting something in the center. I find if I start with a center-based composition, it tends to inhibit me from being able to move forward and get a more interesting composition. If you get everything too square, unless it is something that you are specifically trying for, it can be a bit limiting. Now you might see over here, I've got this Uline magazine. I keep all the garbage magazines that I get. I shouldn't call them garbage. I keep all the magazines that I get in the mail because they are great when you want to glue a piece of paper edge to edge. So I want you to take any kind of piece of paper you have, but don't even worry about what it is. And we're just going to glue it. We're not going to put it in the center. I'm going to put this right here. So this would be kind of rule of thirds composition. And this gives me something now to try to react to try to balance off with, and to try to create something dynamic and interesting. I might just take my pencil here. So I've got this straight line. Now I want to do something maybe that's curvy and a different scale. So what if I just make a messy circle? Like already that's starting to look like something, which is really cool. And then let's think about something that we could do. I don't know about that. Like I don't want to just mirror it on the other side. I do sort of like when things touch. I don't want it to go all the way across and make a horizon. But maybe down here at the bottom could be interesting. Now, I don't like to use scissors in my work necessarily. So I've got probably an over-the-top straight edge here, but this is what I have, and I'm not going to buy a small one. And I can just tear. I like those rough edges. And then I think I want it to just meet up perfectly. So I'm going to tear it on this side too. And I will say when you get a little bit, it's a little harder to tear. The nice, oh, there we go. There we go. And so if I do something like this, I don't know, maybe it looks a little too landscapey. Let me start at the top. You can see a lot of it's just playing. And sometimes you're just like, I don't know if I love it. Oh, maybe something like, maybe right at the bottom of that circle. Kind of block that circle. I like that. What you'll find is that once you dive in, and once you make a decision, you're going to be able to just keep working off of that decision. And it doesn't matter if you make a bad decision because it's collage. You're going to cover it back up anyways. One thing I like about this method is that you can do this with your kids. You're not using anything toxic. It's just torn paper. You can tear it with your hands. I do that quite often. Sometimes I like to add in some hand-drawn elements. This is just some weird, crazy drawing I did. I don't know if that works. And I do love to add some transparency. So now, yeah. This is why you need baby wipes. You get kind of stuck. So I kind of want to keep building on this side here. And I might just let this go right off the page. Like it could be cool to just have this go right off the page. Now, when you're working with something like Tangucho, it can be a little problematic because it's going to, the glue is going to actually come through the paper. So what I like to do is just glue right on the paper and then set down this very fragile, transparent piece of paper. It's gonna get a little sticky, and that's when parchment paper comes in really handy. You can just swish it down. Now, if you're using thick pieces of paper, sometimes you might need to use a little more force. And then I can either just fold that over. It's good to go. Just kind of fold it over, but that's okay. You can just, and then if you need to glue some stuff, you can actually do it right on top and push it through the fibers of this really thin paper. All right. Maybe something shocking orange could be cool. I want it to have like a rougher feel. Something like this. You see, if you don't know where to put something, just have it touch another piece that you've already put down and create some depth and layers. Got this bright red. I don't know, that might be a lot. I wish it went all the way across, but maybe it just goes here. Now this will go a little transparent when I put it in here. So we're going to line up the red with the line. All right, my fingers are getting sticky. Gotta clean that off a little bit. You can, if you feel like you've got glue everywhere on your paper, these come in really handy. All right, so now I've sort of built this box and I need to figure out where's my focal point. What's going to be the star thing? I could do this drawing, but that's gonna block a lot of stuff and it's kind of random. I could do a leaf. That'd kind of be fun. I'll just tear my leaves apart, hopefully without cutting through them. I'm not saying you can't use scissors. For this, well, I use scissors occasionally, but I do like just the rough, torn edges. Just like how organic they feel. So if I do something like this, it's gonna fling your eye right to this corner. We could go to maybe something like this and start bringing the eye back to the center. That's kind of nice. And then this structure here is going to block your eye from going all the way off the paper. And I love that overlap. And as you, I don't know if you can see, but you're gonna see it through here. Now, if you want more transparency, you could use a wet medium, like gel medium or matte medium or even Elmer's glue. It just takes so long to dry. All right, so we're going to just bring up, create a little bit of tension by having this almost touch the corner. That's cool. All right, I like that. And I might just take my parchment paper here and squish it down a little bit. So right here is feeling like it has no point. So what can we do? I think what I'd like to do is take some of this dark red. I'm going to just draw a really thick, right, this is, I don't know what kind of red this is. Kind of really, I've lost all of my alizarin crimson. And it kind of balances that. And then I'm going to get some water and I'm going to blend it. So I got myself a little bit of water and I've just got, I don't know, this is kind of a cheap old brush that's been around forever. I can't even read it. It's a Princeton round brush number 6. But you know, with collage, you don't necessarily need beautiful watercolor brushes. You can just use whatever you've got. And so I don't want a ton of water on this Khadi paper because it's not meant for watercolor. But what I want to do is soften this. And look at that beautiful brick red that comes out. And then we're going to just kind of feather it up. I do like kind of things that bleed, things that blur a little bit in my work. All right, so what you don't want to do is get too much water into your glue because it's going to lift your glue. So we're just going to soften that up. We might still be covering that at some point. We don't know yet. I think what I'd like to do, I've got this cool suitcase from a card. I don't know, that seems too strong. What else do we have here? I guess some more red. I don't think I want to do that. Or like this. Let's see what else we have. We've got a whole bucket of things here. I think what I want is something kind of long and thin. I've got all these kind of shrapnel from a book. I've got this fun paper from when I was in Italy. This little mouse is cute, but I already got the leaf, and you don't want too many. Oh, the backside's really pretty though. Or something subtle like that could be good. You know, this is when you just have to have some fun and see what you want. Sometimes some writing can be fun. All right, so let's just take a look. I feel like I just need something. I kind of like this pop of blue. It's a little, it's got some bookbinding in it or something, but isn't that kind of fun and unexpected? Maybe the other way. I think I like it just on the edge. I mean, I do like to, all right, so let's just tear that a little bit. This is an old book that I got at a thrift store. And I've been using it, oh my goodness, for years, I feel like. All right, so we're just gonna put this right at the bottom. Now, it might not adhere to the very bottom because I put water there, but we'll just wait and see. We can always glue it back in. So that kind of gives this edge a little bit of pizzazz. I also have this fun watercolor graphite that can be fun. Maybe we'll bring this circle back a little. And then we can bring just a little bit of water to give it a little something. And it just softens up that graphite. I do love water-soluble graphite, probably more than I should. All right, I think we need to let this dry just a little bit. And honestly, I feel like this composition looks pretty good. I think I want to just bring in this edge. Let's make it on purpose. And then the one nice thing I like about the Caran d'Ache is that if you want it to be darker, you can paint into the water and make it something super intentional. I love that granulation. So these are the things I like about composition, you know. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect, especially with collage. Like, you're just having fun. This didn't take a ton of time, didn't take a lot of expensive materials. You can use anything you have on hand. You don't need watercolor, water-soluble neocolors. You can use crayons, you can use tempera paint, you can use pencil. You don't have to use any kind of drawing materials at all. I've used string before where I've just coated it in some wet glue, either PVA or matte medium or whatever I have on. Elmer's glue will work too, and you can just put this down and then just tap it into place, and it can be really fun, make some great movement, some great compositional elements. You can, you know, tear out little pieces of origami paper to make specific little dots of color. The sky is the limit, and that's what I love collage so much for. So this has dried a little bit now. One of the things that's kind of bugging me is just this outline. So I can't really get rid of it, but what I could do is make it part of the program. Let's enhance it. So I'm going to take this brick red, because I don't really want to bring another color into this. I'll try it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of color in the red where it's overlapping the red. Does that make sense? I'm going to paint it in. Let's see what happens if we just use water on the edges. Ooh, look at that. I don't know if that's going to stay when it's dry. I think our next class we're going to play with collage and transparency, and we'll work on how to make things disappear. All right, so what if we took, let's see, I don't think gold's where I want. Let's see what happens if we take the white. So we've wet this down, and this white is kind of a transparent white. Oh, look at that. You can just literally shred it. We don't want to do that, I don't think. All right, note to self, don't paint harsh Caran d'Ache on really wet calligraphy paper. So we're just going to take some of this white. You know, you can use these just like watercolor, just by taking a wet brush and brushing onto these. I love the neocolors. Great travel kit. Okay, I don't think this is really working how I wanted it to work, but maybe we just need some kind of overlay. So I've got some more of this calligraphy paper. I don't know if I want to block it so much. Sometimes it could be fun though to hide things. You know what we need is some fun transparency. Let's see what we've got. Well, we've got this. That could be kind of fun. Maybe right here. And that kind of just starts blocking some of that edge. And let's see, we have some more tape. I don't think I want more tape though. We've got some of this Tangucho paper. Let's see if we just take some of it off. Look at that. I'm still not loving that edge, but I think we need to let it dry a little bit first. All right, so I have this and it just doesn't quite seem to be singing the way I want it to sing. So I've got some matte medium here. I just dried this with my hairdryer, which I did not particularly want to do. But I have this monoprint with these green flowers that I think are kind of cool. The idea is we're going to glue this down and it's going to go transparent because I'm going to use matte medium to glue it down. So what I kind of want it to do, I don't want to necessarily block my leaf, but I want it to interact with the leaf. And I know this is going to be a little difficult for you to see, but I like that it breaks through. So what I want to do is trim this down a little bit. And I want to keep it so that it's one big piece of paper. Let's move the water out of the way here. Okay. Does help when you're ripping thin paper to kind of angle it towards. Yeah. Now, I don't know if there's any benefit to having like a piece of paper that completely encapsulates your collage work, but if you think about it like a sandwich, you're sort of locking everything in so nothing will fall off. So if you've got a lot of small little fiddly pieces that might, I don't know, possibly fall off, you could consider getting some kind of transparent paper. This is calligraphy paper for Chinese or Japanese calligraphy. But there's a lot of transparent papers out there. People use deli paper a lot. There's wet strength tissue, things like that. All right, so here I've got this. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. We are just going to go for it because it's art, it's collage, and it is going to be fun. I've got this cheap brush that I use for glue, and I've left a little bit of a border around here. I'm going to put it to the side, flip it so I know which way I want it to come, and let's get a little glue. I can just shake it upside down for a little bit and, oh goodness, hopefully open it. Oh, goodness gracious, the problem with glues. All right, so I've got probably enough glue right here in this lid. I'm gonna just dampen my brush just a little. And I'm gonna very carefully, now remember, I dried this with a hairdryer, so it's dry, but we're just going to carefully start gluing down. You got to be careful with water-soluble graphite because that can bleed when you add water to it. It's like watercolor. It can reactivate. So you don't want to brush really heavily on that. You can kind of dab around things so that you're not mushing any kind of hand-drawn elements. You don't need a ton of glue, but you do want it all the way to the edge. And since you're going pretty much right to like a, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch edge here, I'm gonna bring some of, I don't know why I'm using it right out of the jar when I have the lid. Now this might break through because it's kind of 3D here, so I'm gonna just add a little extra glue around the edges. The nice thing about the thin papers is you can really mold them. All right, and now we're going to take this, and since we cut it, there we go. All right, and then I've got my parchment paper somewhere. It kind of went flying when and then I'm going to push it down. All right. Now it's not super transparent, but what we're going to do now is we're going to paint on top, and that should add a little more transparency. To this. You can see that it's bubbling up a little bit. You want to get rid of any air. Now, if you get air bubbles stuck, you can always just take a little pin or X-Acto knife and just pop it, basically, and then squish out the air. And I'm really pushing down kind of hard, not too hard. You don't want to rip your paper. But you can see it's still there, a little more pastel now maybe. And then you can add elements on top if you want. I don't know if this is the right element, but and bring things forward. But let's make sure we saturate the leaf so the leaf comes forward. All right. Now we need to let that dry a little bit. course, the beauty is that if you're not happy with this at this stage, you can just, well, peel off sections of it. And do this sort of reveal. You can decide if you want some things to be kind of hidden. Like I like the green flowers. I don't like how it's blocking my, let's see, I feel like I had some tweezers. Tweezers can come in handy. That might be the whole leaf. I mean, it's a little bit like surgery. It's kind of fun. If you're doing this with your kids to get some manual dexterity practice. I will say it does help to have some fingernails. All right, I think I like this, so I'm going to take my damp brush here and push down all the edges. Just to make sure that they stay glued. So I kind of like that. I love the bright red here. Maybe want a little bit of green going up to the leaf. I will say this is not exactly what I expected to do today, but it's pretty fun. There we go. There we go. Get a little green back in there. Ooh, that's nice. Oh, I did like that text. I'm glad to have that back. I'm just gonna cut some of that off. It's nice. I kind of like how it disappears there. You kind of have this little fade in, fade out. All right, now let's just take a little bit of glue on a damp brush and let's just paint all these rough sections down. This is one nice thing about the Khadi paper that I've found, that sometimes, depending on your paper, it really almost melds right into the Khadi paper because the Khadi paper is so soft and forgiving, I guess. All right. Now see, I like that. It's a little bit complicated. It's got some hidden layers. It's got some strong layers. I've got this nice bright green. I've got this bright red. I've got this dark black. I've got this piece that's just doing its own thing here. I'm going to just tear off the edge. So it ends. Let's glue that down nice. A little bit more. So, I don't know, when you work with the wet glues, it's a little bit messier, let's just say that. Where's my, let's just clean off this. Let's have a little pop of red here. I like that. You know, just let the crazy accidents happen. Look at how great that is. I love that. This is what is exciting about collage, especially. I mean, any art, but when you just make some random mistake, movement, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I joke all the time that most of my art technique came from making some horrible mistake and just trying to make it work. All right. I love it. I think that's going to be fun. It's not a masterpiece, but it was a great way to spend this rainy Sunday morning. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had a good time too.